NYC Mayor Mamdani talks immigration, Trump administration policies in America 250 speech. Mayor Zoran Mamdani gave a speech sitting behind the George Washington desk at City Hall on Friday morning to mark America's 250th birthday. Mamdani blasts ICE agents, Elon Musk and supremacy in America 250 speech ahead of July 4th weekend. Zoran Mamdani blasted Elon Musk, ICE and oligarchs in a fiery America 250 speech flanked by naturalized citizens ahead of July 4th weekend. Americans disgusted at Trump earning $1 billion from crypto as president, obviously a grift. Hundreds of Guardian readers expressed concerns over greed in the White House and a billionaire president unconcerned with high gas and grocery prices. Donald Trump has earned more than $1 billion from his crypto businesses since returning to the White House, according to recent financial disclosures. Amid questions of conflict of interest, more than 400 Americans expressed feelings of outrage, disgust and despair at their president. They answered a Guardian call for their views on Trump's fortune. Continue reading. As Trump commands 250th stage, Democrats offer their vision of patriotism. Partisanship around the country's big anniversary has put Democrats in a bind. They want to criticize the president without appearing unpatriotic. Egypt team staffer in altercation with Dallas police. Police say they were responding to a request from security at the team's hotel Thursday. Louisiana court halts criminal indictment against state attorney general. Republican Liz Murrill was indicted for the alleged intimidation of New Orleans elected officials. Sign up for the Breaking News U.S. newsletter email. Louisiana's highest court has granted a stay of the proceedings. Twist of a high-stakes political battle between Republican state leaders and Democrats who govern its most famous city, New Orleans. Liz Murrill, a Republican who was Louisiana's first female attorney general, was slapped with a 16-count indictment on Thursday by a New Orleans grand jury charging her with intimidation and malfeasance. The charges effectively accused her of trying to intimidate New Orleans officials who fought a law passed by Republican legislators to overhaul the city's courts. Continue reading. Inside the security operations for July 4th celebrations in D.C. The 4th of July celebrations in Washington, D.C., are deemed a National Special Security Event, which is the highest possible designation. Trump intercedes to push Robert Smullen out of NY House race. Assemblyman Robert Smullen, who lost a Republican primary, will not run on the Conservative Party line in his bid to replace Representative Elise Stefanik. Argentina returns to Miami under tighter security. The last time the team played here, fans stormed the gates and delayed kickoff by an hour. Officials say they've learned their lesson. Zoran Mamdani rebukes Trumpism with pro-immigrant speech for U.S.'s 250th birthday. New York mayor's speech cut ideological counterpoint to policies of president, who will deliver his own remarks later today. New York's mayor, Zoran Mamdani, exalted the city's legacy of immigrants on Friday in a historically laden, ideological counterpoint to a U.S. semiquincentennial address that was expected later in the day from Donald Trump, who has sought to deport immigrants en masse throughout his second presidency. Speaking from behind a desk at New York's City Hall that belonged to the U.S.'s first president, George Washington, and which itself is a century older than the resolute desk in the White House, Mamdani was surrounded by naturalized citizens like himself as he listed the waves of immigrants who shaped the city. Continue reading. I used to revere the great experiment that is the United States. After Trump, I'm not so sure. Jonathan Friedland. On paper, the U.S. Constitution is a thing of beauty. But the would-be emperor in Washington has revealed its great weakness. America's big birthday has come at a bad time. On Saturday it will be a divided nation that marks 250 years since 13 North American colonies declared their independence from the Great Britain of George III. Many will be anxious that the republic they established that day is fragile, not least because of the would-be emperor in the White House. Some will console themselves that hope and angst have always been intertwined in the American story. From the very start, confidence in a bright, exceptional U.S. future was combined with foreboding and doubt. At the close of the 1787 Constitutional Convention, a woman approached one of the founding fathers, Benjamin Franklin, to ask if the delegates had established a monarchy or a republic. Franklin's answer: "A republic, if you can keep it." Jonathan Friedland is a Guardian columnist. Continue reading. Sources: Trump likely to pardon pollution violators, weighing clemency for Diddy. President Trump hasn't committed to a firm number of people who will receive clemency. He's scheduled to have a meeting on pardons Friday afternoon, sources said. Democrats seize on Trump earnings to go after GOP on affordability. President Trump raked in billions of dollars while in office over the past year, setting up a split screen ahead of the midterm elections as Americans confront rising prices and a lackluster jobs environment. Financial disclosures released Tuesday show the president made more than $2 billion in 2025, including $1.2 billion in cryptocurrency-related income. It's giving new ammunition to Democrats who want to contrast Trump's economic experiences over. How to keep the American Republic another 250 years and beyond. Franklin understood that keeping America a democratic republic was a far harder task than establishing it. Mamdani addresses America's 250th. Patriotism is every act of righteous dissent. New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani called on Americans to confront the nation's flaws rather than ignore them on the eve of the 250th anniversary of U.S. independence, framing righteous dissent as core to the country's founding ideals. "This will be no ordinary day of celebration," he said. 250 years presents a Martin Rosen on Donald Trump and 250 Years of U.S. Independence, cartoon. Continue reading. Iran welcomes foreign leaders for Ayatollah Khamenei's state funeral. A stream of foreign dignitaries, officials and mourners gathered in Tehran on Friday to pay their respects to former Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who was killed by U.S.-Israeli airstrikes on February 28 that triggered the war with Iran. Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, a key mediator in the U.S.-Iran talks to end the war. Trump calls out NATO ahead of summit, calling it ridiculous for U.S. to persist on one-sided path. U.S. President Donald Trump blasted NATO on Truth Social over defense spending disparities ahead of the alliance's upcoming summit in Ankara, Turkey. Connecting flight, good luck. For passengers without connections, late arriving flights are a nuisance and inconvenience. For passengers with connections, late arriving flights may be highly disruptive. Transparency is needed. Justice Department defends decision not to release, unredact more Epstein files. The Department of Justice DOJ declined Thursday to release additional unredacted records from its investigation into convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, telling a federal judge that it has already adequately complied with the law. The DOJ's response came in the final hours of a court-ordered deadline to remove redactions in at least a dozen documents. Christie, GOP headed for monumental defeat in midterms. Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie predicted during a podcast appearance this week that Republicans are headed for a monumental defeat in the upcoming midterm elections that could force a reckoning within the party. The assessment came after comedian Hasan Minhaj asked Christie if GOP voters want the truth, referring to the former governors. UK's military decline will pose a major challenge for its new Prime Minister. Spending on Britain's forces is unlikely to survive other budgetary demands. US says it's monitoring oil markets for price fixing, urges states to do same. Antitrust regulators suggested that state attorneys general could assist in investigating unlawful conduct by companies. How extreme heat is changing DC's July 4th weekend event plans. Much of the eastern half of the U.S. is dealing with extreme heat this week, including the nation's capital. The high temperature Thursday in Washington, D.C., was 101 degrees, according to the National Weather Service. Friday's forecast calls for a high of 103. The heat comes as D.C. celebrates the country's 250th birthday over the Bessent on Trump accounts, gas prices and wage growth. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent spoke exclusively with Kelly O'Grady about Trump accounts, which officially launch on Saturday, as well as when gas prices could lower to pre-Iran war levels and wage growth for Americans. Cruz pushes bill to hold tax-exempt sponsors accountable as DOJ probes Singham Network. Ted Cruz pushes the Sponsor Act to strip tax-exempt status from nonprofits funding political violence as the DOJ launches a grand jury probe. Live updates. Trump to headline Mount Rushmore celebrations, heat forces changes to National Mall event plans. People across the country are preparing to celebrate America's 250th birthday this weekend, a process that has been made more challenging as event organizers scramble to deal with the extreme heat. President Trump is headed to South Dakota late Friday, where he's expected to make remarks at the Mount Rushmore National Memorial and ahead. The wheels are coming off. Readers reflect on the 250th anniversary of the American experiment. Against a backdrop of sweeping rollbacks of civil rights and deteriorating relations with allies, many are feeling cynical as the United States prepares to mark its 250th anniversary on the 4th of July. The country faces a turbulent moment under the Donald Trump administration. The anniversary coincides with sweeping rollbacks of civil rights, deteriorating relations with traditional allies, and growing domestic opposition to the administration's handling of immigration and free speech. Against this backdrop, many Americans say they feel increasingly cynical about the country's future. Continue reading. 0% intro APR until 2024 is 100% insane. The Axe Files with David Axelrod. Go beyond the soundbites and get to know some of the most interesting players in politics. Margins of error. Look closely at almost anything and you'll find data, lots of it. But what are those numbers really saying about who we are and what we believe? Harry Enton is on a mission to find out. CNN Political Briefing. The political news you need to know, in 10 minutes or less. Hosted by David Chalian. Democratic Senate candidate called for mass release of criminals during prison abolition webinar. Abdul El-Sayed called for decarceration and abolishing prisons in an unearthed 2020 webinar, raising concerns about his Michigan Senate race bid. Republican unveils Declaration of Independence bill ahead of America's 250th birthday. Rep. Matt Van Epps said his bill reaffirming the Declaration of Independence directly responds to socialist candidates gaining ground in primaries. It's America's 250th birthday. And Black Americans are sitting out the celebrations. Morgan Jerkins. The 250th anniversary is arriving among Black communities as a whisper instead of a roar. Not soon after Donald Trump's 2025 inauguration, there emerged a viral illustration of 4 Black women sitting at the top of a building while watching the world burn at a distance. They are observing with coffee cups in hand. An American flag hangs over the edge. If that exhaustion hadn't been made clear enough, Black people, particularly across TikTok and Threads, have urged one another to not give them a reaction. The them is white people who find Black rage exciting and lucrative for their own personal gain. We're not allowing our anger to become spectacle. We're not shouting anymore. What is most important is to stay alive, take care of one another, and to allow ourselves to step to the forefront for the rights that they have taken for granted as we've risked our lives to protect them. There is an old African American proverb: if you can't hear, then you must feel. Morgan Jerkins is a senior writer, Race and Equity, at The Guardian US. Continue reading. We asked Americans to grade the economy. Then we asked if it would change their vote. Americans at the Great American State Fair gave the economy a grade B but said values, faith, family and party affiliation matter more at the ballot box. James Carville breaks with famous "It's the economy, stupid" slogan because of Trump. James Carville says his famous 1992 catchphrase, "It's the economy, stupid," now haunts him because of what he calls Trump's corruption today. Vulnerable House Dems bipartisanship push clashes with fantasy to beat the S out of Hegseth. Rep. Susie Lee, DNev, who is up for re-election in a crucial swing district, said she wanted to beat the S out of Pete Hegseth after touting bipartisanship during an address to Nevadans. I'm in no mood to celebrate America. Our country is broken and needs repair. Jamil Smith. America at 250 is not a finished monument, but a structure still under repair. To call this Saturday the nation's 250th birthday is to indulge a comfortable fiction. 1776 was a declaration, not a birth certificate, and the founders wrote its claims of human equality while this nation enslaved human beings. A truer account of American freedom runs through 1619 and Juneteenth, when Americans forced the country, at last, to begin making its promises answerable to reality. So I'm not in the mood to celebrate America 250, and I'm not alone. The affection is thin this summer. The Pew Research Center found that 69% of Americans were dissatisfied with the country's direction early this year. That is not ingratitude. Sometimes a sour mood is simply clear vision. Jamil Smith is a Guardian US columnist. Continue reading. Trump kicks off 4th of July weekend with symbolic salute to America's legacy. Donald Trump returns to Mount Rushmore for 4th of July fireworks before heading to the Salute to America event on the National Mall Saturday. Massachusetts woman steps in after shameful Dem governor boycotts Great American State Fair. Massachusetts woman pays her own way to the Great American State Fair after Governor Maura Healey and other Democratic governors boycott Freedom 250 event. E pluribus algae. Why green pond scum is as American as red, white and blue. And why the most patriotic approach to the reflecting pool may be to let the algae take over. A big gamble for the left. Can socialism appeal in a swing state? Francesca Hong, a state legislator running for governor of Wisconsin, wants to prove that a Democratic socialist can win in a battleground. Some say she would hand the race to Republicans. Has the MAHA movement given up? Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and his allies promised public health libertarianism. The idea couldn't survive once they took power. Ex-Olympian charged over alleged reflecting pool damage. The Trump administration has indicted a former Olympian over damage to the National Mall's reflecting pool. A lawyer for David Hearn says he's innocent. The nation's cartoonists on the week in politics. Every week political cartoonists throughout the country and across the political spectrum apply their ink-stained skills to capture the foibles, memes, hypocrisies and other head-slapping events in the world of politics. The fruits of these labors are hundreds of cartoons that entertain and enrage readers of all political stripes. Here's an offering of the best of this week's crop, picked fresh off the Tunisphere. Edited by Matt Worker. Trump says U.S. keeping current support levels for NATO would be ridiculous. President Trump says it would be ridiculous for the United States to continue its one-sided relationship with NATO. His remarks came less than a week before a NATO summit in Turkey. Could infighting derail Democrats' hopes to win back House? Democrats are hoping they can win back the House majority this fall, but fighting within the party could complicate their plans. Hakeem Jeffries addresses Democratic Party divisions, says Trump is the bigger issue. On the eve of America's 250th birthday, NPR's Michelle Martin asks House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries of New York about the Democratic Party's midterm future. A grand jury indicts Louisiana's Attorney General in a fight over changes to the local courts. Louisiana's Republican Attorney General has been indicted on criminal charges by a grand jury in New Orleans. Trump got the Senate candidates he wanted. How much will he spend to help them? President Donald Trump has reshaped the U.S. Senate map by sidelining some Republican incumbents and promoting loyalists. Friday briefing. The U.S. at 250. Who gets to tell the story? In today's newsletter, as official celebrations spotlight a narrow cast of white heroes, communities across the U.S. are reclaiming the histories that Freedom 250 leaves out. Good morning, and a very happy 250th birthday to the United States of America. If you prefer to celebrate with cage fighting on the White House lawn, an Indy car rally through the streets of Washington, D.C., or simply by watching the president do his lonely bop to YMCA at a sparsely attended state fair, so much the better. It takes a special kind of someone to make the semiquincentennial birthday of a nation of 349 million people, from a whole variety of backgrounds, all about himself. But he wouldn't be the only one centered on a very particular white, male, Christian-centric view of how the nation came to be. UK News: women from Black and Asian backgrounds are less likely than their white counterparts to receive an epidural while giving birth, research has revealed. Ukraine and Russia have promised fresh assaults after Moscow launched a huge barrage on Kyiv, killing at least 27 people, tearing open apartment buildings and sending tens of thousands of people to shelters. UK News: criminal investigators in the UK say they have uncovered a truly international network of organized drug-facilitated sexual assault in which victims are sedated before being raped and sexually assaulted. UK politics: Keir Starmer has formally apologized for the British state's role in past forced adoptions after decades of campaigning by mothers and children affected. World News: A rescue team pulled a 43-year-old security guard alive from a collapsed basement, ending an operation that became a symbol of hope after the devastation of twin earthquakes that struck Venezuela. Continue reading. Trump hijacks America at 250 celebrations, podcast. This weekend marks 250 years since the signing of the Declaration of Independence, but Donald Trump is making the celebration all about himself. As the anniversary approaches, Jonathan Friedland talks to The Atlantic's Yoni Applebaum about why so many Americans are feeling less patriotic these days. Archive. AP, Reuters. Continue reading. The Democratic Socialists are no longer on the fringe. Democratic Socialist wins in New York and Colorado have Republicans calling Democrats a socialist party while moderates urge leaders to speak out. Dem CO governor nominee calls out DSA candidate for antisemitism comment. Colorado Attorney General Phil Weiser, D., who defeated Sen. Michael Bennet, D., in Colorado's Democratic gubernatorial primary, said he would confront congressional candidate Melit Quiros, D., for refusing to condemn the deadly 2025 firebomb attack on Jewish activists in Boulder as anti-Semitic. Quiros, a Democratic socialist and former attorney, scored an upset against incumbent Representative Diana DeGette. Jack Smith says DOJ can't do its job because of judges' distrust of prosecutors. Former special counsel Jack Smith warned that the U.S. is facing an attack on the rule of law under President Trump, saying he is very concerned about the integrity of future elections and accusing the administration of weaponizing the Justice Department. Smith, the special counsel who brought charges against Trump following his first term, argued that Democratic governors press U.S. Postal Service to drop plan tied to Trump's election order. A group of Democratic governors is asking the U.S. Postal Service to withdraw its proposed rule to comply with an executive order that seeks to create a federal list of eligible voters, including those eligible to receive a ballot by mail. Trump, quite ill, and getting worse daily, Rosie O'Donnell tells The Guardian after President posts AI video attacking her, as it happened. This live blog is now closed. Trump posts AI video of him as doctor treating critics, derangement syndrome. Sign up for the breaking news. US email. OpenAI is reportedly in early stage talks to give a 5% stake in the ChatGPT developer to the US government as artificial intelligence companies attempt to smooth relations with Donald Trump's administration. The OpenAI chief executive, Sam Altman, has argued that giving the U.S. public a financial stake in the company is the best way to share the benefits of AI, according to the Financial Times, which cited two unnamed people familiar with the discussions. Continue reading. Extreme heat advisory delays National Mall July 4th event, organizers say. Entry to the National Mall for a record-breaking fireworks show celebrating July 4th has been delayed as Washington, D.C. braces for extreme heat, Freedom 250 organizers said Thursday. President Trump insisted he would still deliver a lengthy speech at Saturday's Salute to America 250 celebration and fireworks event, despite forecasts that temperatures will climb to 107 degrees. Many children don't have Trump accounts. Some are missing out on $1,000. More than 6 million have been signed up for the investment accounts, which open for contributions July 4th, but there are barriers to uptake. The European sports host with the most. Switzerland is home to many international sporting organizations, and a pile of upcoming big events. When a World Cup exit becomes a political crisis. Angry fans are normal. Presidential investigations, prosecution threats.